The Grand Tribunal Hall stretched across 3 kilometers of crystalline walls that seemed to breathe with their own light. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood at the center of the enormous chamber, surrounded by a shimmering energy field that made him look impossibly small. Above him, around him, towering over him were the representatives of 847 alien species. Some floated in anti-gravity fields. Others sat on platforms of pure energy. A few existed as clouds of luminous gas contained in mechanical suits. Marcus had never felt so alone in his entire life. High Chancellor, Vorn occupied the highest platform, his body made of living plasma contained within an ornate golden framework. When he spoke, his voice resonated through every wall, every floor, every molecule of air in the vast space. Human Ambassador Marcus Webb, you stand accused of 17 violations of galactic law. Most serious among them is the complete destruction of a Krell Empire scouting fleet. 50 warships, 20,000 lives. All eliminated in the span of 3 seconds. Holographic images materialized around Marcus. Debris fields. Shattered hulls. And one haunting transmission that played for everyone to hear. A Krell commander's final words, distorted by static and fear. They should not have this technology. No one should. They came from nowhere and we are nothing against them. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in 1,000 languages. Some demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others called for a complete quarantine of the human species. A few, very few, called for investigation before judgment. Marcus stood perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back. And then he did something that silenced the entire chamber. Something that had never happened in the 40,000-year history of the Galactic Council. He laughed, not a nervous giggle. Not a diplomatic chuckle meant to ease tension. A genuine, amused laugh that echoed through the vast space like a bell. "Your Honor," Marcus said when the shocked silence had lasted long enough. "Before we discuss my surrender and Earth's occupation, I have one simple question. Has anyone here wondered why we destroyed that fleet so easily?" Vorn's plasma body flared brighter, a sign of anger. "You dare to mock this council? You dare to make jokes while facing judgment for mass murder?" "Mass murder?" Marcus repeated, his smile fading. "Is that what you call it when someone defends their home? Because that Krell fleet wasn't on a diplomatic mission. They came to conquer. They came to enslave. And they came without any attempt at communication." A reptilian delegate from the Sorn hierarchy rose, her scales shifting through colors that Marcus had learned meant aggressive challenge. "Impossible. Our intelligence showed Earth decades away from even basic shield technology. You could not possibly have developed weapons capable of defeating a Krell battle fleet." "Your intelligence was based on the technology we let you see," Marcus replied softly. "Did you really think we would broadcast our military capabilities to a galaxy that has spent the last century treating us like children?" The scene shifted 3 weeks into the past. Colonel Rita Valdez sat in Earth's orbital command station, watching her long-range sensors light up with incoming contacts. 50 massive signatures, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. All of them moving directly toward Earth. "Ma'am, we're broadcasting on all standard frequencies," Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka reported from the communications station. No response. "They're not even acknowledging our hails." Raita's jaw tightened as she studied the tactical display. The ships were clearly military. Their weapon systems were charging. And based on their trajectory, they would reach Earth in less than 18 hours. "How long does council arbitration take?" Rita asked quietly. 18 to 36 months, typically. We'd have to file a formal complaint, wait for committee review, then schedule a hearing. We'll be ashes long before that. Rita opened a secure channel. "Wake up Dr. Hayes. Tell him it's time to use the Santiago array." In a hidden facility buried deep beneath Chile's Atacama Desert, Dr. Benjamin Hayes received the call. Around him, his research team scrambled to activate systems that had been purely theoretical until 6 months ago. The Santiago array represented 80 years of human innovation. built in secret while the galaxy dismissed Earth as a primitive backwater barely capable of fusion drives. Array charging, Hayes announced, his fingers flying across holographic controls. Targeting solutions locked? We'll have one shot at this. The Krell fleet entered Earth's solar system like conquerors. Their commander broadcast on all frequencies, demanding immediate surrender. When no response came, he gave the order to open fire. Then space folded. It was the only way to describe what happened. Reality twisted, bent, compressed into an impossible geometry that human and Krell eyes alike could barely process. And when space unfolded again, the 50 warships were simply gone. In their place, a single message buoy floated in the void, transmitting in Krell language. Turn back. Last warning. Back in the tribunal chamber, Marcus activated a data chip he had been holding. The main display flickered to life, showing the battle from multiple angles. Council delegates leaned forward, their various sensory organs focusing intently on the footage. "We didn't destroy them," Marcus said quietly. "We moved them. 40 light-years away, every system disabled except life support. We gave them time to call for rescue. We showed mercy to beings who came to destroy us." Delegate Sora, a being of pure luminous energy, spoke for the first time. Her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The power requirements for mass teleportation on that scale would require a Dyson sphere worth of energy. How did a species barely a century into space travel achieve this? "By not following your rules," Marcus replied. "You see, the galaxy has been spacefaring for millions of years. You've optimized your technology. You've reached what you believe is the pinnacle of achievement. But optimization means you stopped looking for alternatives. You stopped asking what if." He gestured, and the display changed to show Earth's power generation facilities. Not fusion reactors. Not antimatter containment. Something else entirely, something that made several delegates gasp in recognition and horror. "Zero-point energy extraction," Marcus continued. "Direct tapping of quantum vacuum fluctuations. Your scientists said it was impossible. Your engineers said it would never scale. We did it anyway because we had to. Because we were alone in a dangerous galaxy and we knew no one would help us." Vorn's plasma form dimmed slightly, a sign of uncertainty. "Even if your claims are true, you cannot stand against the combined might of the Council. We field thousands of warships. Millions of soldiers. The resources of 847 species." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "And 3 years ago, we infiltrated every single one of your military networks. We know your ship positions, your weapon capabilities, your command codes, your strategic plans. We know everything." The chamber erupted again, this time in panic. Delegates shouted questions. Security officers rushed toward Marcus's containment field. Admiral Kethis, a crystalline being representing the Vryn Empire, stood so abruptly that her platform cracked. "This is an act of war," she declared. "You admit to espionage, to infiltration of sovereign systems." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "Because 2 months ago, we discovered something interesting in your private communications." "Would you like to hear them, Admiral?" He didn't wait for permission. The display shifted, showing intercepted messages between various council members. Discussions about Earth, debates about who would claim its resources. Arguments about the disposition of the human population. The word slave appeared multiple times in multiple languages. "You were planning to invade us anyway?" Marcus said, his voice hard now. "The Krell fleet wasn't an isolated incident. It was a test run. You wanted to see how we'd respond before launching a full invasion." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the delegates who had been calling for war looked uncomfortable. Morven, an elderly being with tentacles that drooped with age, spoke in a voice heavy with sorrow. "Ambassador Webb, not all of us agreed with those plans. Some of us argued for peaceful contact." "And you were overruled," Marcus replied, his tone gentler. "I know, Delegate Morven. We read those communications too. You and 14 others voted against the invasion proposals. The rest of you," he looked around the chamber, "voted to enslave 8 billion people because you thought we were too primitive to defend ourselves." He took a breath. then spoke the words that would change everything. Well, we can defend ourselves. And right now, I need you all to understand something very clearly. Earth is not your resource. Humanity is not your labor force. We are a sovereign species, and we will remain free. Anyone who tries to change that will face the consequences. Vorn raised his energy staff, and everyone fell silent. What consequences, Ambassador? You threaten us in our own chambers. You claim capabilities that seem impossible. But you are one man, alone, surrounded by the greatest military powers in the galaxy. What can you possibly do? Marcus smiled again, and this time it was cold as deep space. I can show you what happens when you corner a species that has nowhere left to run. Director Kim, initiate Protocol Lighthouse. The lights in the tribunal chamber suddenly went dark. Emergency lighting flickered to life, casting strange shadows across the tribunal chamber. High Chancellor Vorn's plasma body glowed bright, trying to illuminate the darkness. Around the room, massive armored guards stood frozen, their weapons powered down, their armor systems completely dead. Marcus remained in his containment field, but now he held a small device in his hand. It glowed with soft blue light. Apologies for the dramatic presentation, he said calmly, but you needed to understand something. This device is connected directly to Earth's defense network, the same network that is currently interfacing with every electronic system in this chamber. Delegate Threx, a being with 6 cybernetic arms, frantically worked his neural interface. His mechanical fingers moved faster than human eyes could follow. Impossible. The tribunal systems are protected by quantum encryption developed over 20,000 years. Nothing can break it. Nothing you know about, Marcus corrected. You see, quantum encryption is excellent against threats you anticipated, against attackers using technology similar to yours. But humanity developed quantum computing from scratch in just 50 years. We had no template to follow, no established methods to copy. We had to invent everything ourselves. And that meant we approached problems differently than you did. The main display suddenly reignited, but it wasn't showing the past anymore. It showed the present. Real-time positions of every Council fleet in this sector of space. Ship classifications. Weapon inventories. Shield frequencies. Even command authorization codes scrolled past in neat columns. Admiral Kethis rose from her seat, her crystalline body refracting light into angry reds and oranges. This is espionage. This is infiltration of military systems. This is war. This is survival, Marcus replied. And we've been inside your networks for 3 years now. Every communication, every strategic plan, every dirty little secret. He paused. Including the real reason you're all here today. The scene flashed backward 2 months. Intelligence Officer James Park sat alone in a secure facility deep underground, reviewing intercepted communications. The dim blue light from his screens reflected off his tired face. He had been reading for 6 hours straight. And what he found made him sick to his stomach? Director Kim, he spoke into his communicator. You need to see this immediately. Director Rachel Kim arrived within minutes. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She read through the files James had flagged, her expression growing darker with each page. How many Council species are involved in this? She asked quietly. At least 40. Maybe more. They've been planning this for 8 years. James pulled up a timeline. The Krell fleet wasn't a scouting mission. It was a test. They wanted to see our defensive capabilities before launching the main invasion. When? Within the next 2 years. They're arguing about who gets the best territories, who gets rights to our water, who gets to claim the human population as workers. He couldn't keep the anger from his voice. They're treating us like property to be divided up. Rachel closed the files with a gesture. Get this to Ambassador Webb immediately. And James, initiate Protocol Lighthouse. If we're going to face the entire galaxy, they need to know exactly what they're up against. Back in the tribunal, Marcus was playing those same intercepted communications through the chamber's audio system. The delegates' own voices filled the space. Discussions about territorial claims. Debates about resource allocation. Arguments about how many humans would be needed for labor on various mining operations. The word slave appeared again and again in different languages. Always with the same meaning. Morven's tentacles drooped even further. Not all of us supported this madness, Ambassador. Some of us fought against it. I know, Delegate Morven, Marcus said gently. You and 14 others voted against every invasion proposal. You argued for peaceful contact, for cultural exchange, for respecting our sovereignty. And you were ignored, overruled, dismissed as being too soft. He turned to address the full chamber. But here's what you all need to understand. While you were planning to enslave us, we were preparing to defend ourselves. And we discovered something interesting about your military capabilities. The display changed again. This time it showed detailed schematics of Council warships. But these weren't simple blueprints. They were weakness assessments. Every vulnerability marked in red. Every system failure point highlighted. Every potential exploit noted with mathematical precision. Your ships are powerful, Marcus acknowledged. Your weapons devastating. Your shields nearly impenetrable. But you've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. You've optimized for conflicts against enemies who think like you, who use similar tactics, who follow the same strategic principles. He smiled slightly. We don't. The scene shifted again to 3 hours earlier. In Earth's relocated command center, a heated argument was taking place. Prime Minister Adebayo stood facing General Nathan Stone across a strategic planning table. The general was a tall man with graying hair and shoulders that carried the weight of humanity's survival. You're asking me to authorize what amounts to a declaration of war against the entire galaxy. Adebayo said, her voice tight with tension. I'm asking you to ensure our species survives, General Stone replied. Ma'am, intelligence shows 23 battle fleets mobilizing. That's not a police action. That's not a punitive expedition. That's genocide-level force. Then we use our displacement technology. We move Earth again. We hide. For how long? The general's voice was hard. They control 90% of known space. They have resources we can't match. Today we can hide. Next year they'll find us. The year after that, they'll be ready for our defenses. Adebayo's hands trembled slightly as she considered the implications. Outside the command center windows, Earth's sun shone peacefully, but it wasn't their original sun anymore. They had already moved once. How many times could they run? We have one chance, General Stone continued, to establish ourselves as too dangerous to attack. If we don't take it, humanity becomes a fugitive species, always running, until the day we can't run anymore. Adebayo closed her eyes. When she opened them, her decision was made. Authorization granted. But General, if this goes wrong, if we start a war that destroys us, that's on both our heads. Ma'am, if we do nothing, we're already destroyed. At least this way we go down fighting. Back in the tribunal chamber, Marcus had begun showing the delegates exactly what Earth's defensive capabilities included. The display showed footage that made even the most warlike species pause. This is our planetary displacement system, Marcus explained. We can move not just ships or weapons, but entire planets. Moons, asteroid belts. We relocated our entire solar system to a new position 2 weeks ago. You have no idea where Earth actually is right now. Admiral Kethis studied the data with professional interest despite her anger. The energy requirements for that would be astronomical. Our best calculations say you'd need to harvest an entire star's output for decades. Your calculations assume conventional power generation, Marcus replied. We're not conventional. We extract power directly from the quantum foam of space itself. Effectively unlimited energy, limited only by how much our equipment can handle at once. Delegate Sora flared brighter with alarm. You're drawing power from the zero-point field? That's theoretically possible, but practically insane. The containment systems required, the stability issues, the potential for catastrophic failure. Yes, it's difficult, Marcus agreed. It's dangerous. Several of our early facilities suffered containment breaches that killed hundreds of researchers. But we perfected it because we had to. Because the alternative was extinction. He manipulated the display again. But the displacement system isn't even our most effective weapon. Would you like to see what we showed the Krell fleet before we moved them? The footage showed a different engagement. One that had never been recorded in Council space. A single human vessel facing a test drone. The drone was firing at full power, shields at maximum, using every defensive system known to Council military science. The human ship didn't fire back. It simply vanished, and reappeared inside the drone's shields, where shields meant nothing. Where armor was irrelevant, the drone was cut apart from the inside in less than a second. Pinpoint teleportation, Marcus said softly. We can move objects directly through shields, through armor, through any physical barrier. We can teleport weapons inside your ships. We can remove critical components from your reactors. We can extract your command crews and leave your vessels drifting. The implications settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. If humanity could teleport with such precision, no defense mattered. No shield could protect them. No armor could stop them, Admiral Kethis spoke, and for the first time her voice held a note of respect. You've designed weapons specifically to counter every advantage we possess. This wasn't defensive preparation. This was planning for offensive war. Yes, Marcus admitted. Because we learned something important about galactic politics. Defensive capability only works if your enemy believes you'll use it. We needed you to know, without question, that attacking Earth would be suicide. Vorn's plasma form pulsed erratically. So this entire presentation is a threat? You come to our chambers, demonstrate your infiltration of our systems, show us weapons designed to kill us, and expect what? That we'll simply accept your demands? I expect you to be rational, Marcus said. Because there's one more thing you need to see. The display changed one final time. It showed 3 Council battle fleets, over 300 warships, converging on Earth's last known position. Timestamps indicated this was happening right now in real time. Those fleets launched 30 minutes ago, Marcus said calmly. They're heading to empty space because Earth isn't there anymore. But I'm going to give you a demonstration of what would happen if Earth was still there. He tapped the device in his hand. Dr. Hayes, if you please. Show them the Santiago array at full power. In the distant location where the fleets were converging, space began to shimmer. And then one by one, objects began to appear around each warship, asteroids, thousands of them, each one positioned within striking distance of a hull. Each one massive enough to destroy a ship utterly. Kinetic bombardment, Marcus explained. Each asteroid massing millions of tons. Each one accelerated to relativistic speeds, held in stasis just meters from your hulls. If we release the stasis fields, those ships and everyone on them ceases to exist. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates surged from their platforms, shouting in hundreds of languages. Some demanded Marcus be executed immediately. Others called for their fleets to retreat. A few simply stood in shocked silence, processing the implications of weapons so precise and so devastating that no defense existed against them. Admiral Kethis transmitted urgent commands to her fleet commanders, her crystalline form shifting through colors that indicated extreme stress. All vessels, immediate evasive action. Do not approach the target coordinates. But Marcus held up his hand. Too late, Admiral. Your ships can't move faster than thought. And we've been thinking about this for years. The holographic display zoomed in on one of the Council warships. A massive Vryn dreadnought, pride of the Imperial fleet. Around it, 17 asteroids hung in space like a crown of death. Each one large enough to be visible from the bridge. Each one so close that the crew could see their craggy surfaces through the viewports. On the bridge of that dreadnought, Captain Vex stared at the impossible sight. Her tactical officer worked frantically at his station, trying to target the asteroids with point defense weapons. Nothing happened. The weapons wouldn't fire. The targeting systems showed errors. Every defensive system had been locked out. Captain, her communications officer said, his voice cracking with fear, we're receiving a transmission. From Earth. Put it through, Vex ordered. Though she knew it would be pointless to resist whatever was coming, a human voice filled the bridge. Young, female, calm. Vrin vessel Crystalline Dawn. This is Dr. Lisa Cross of the Santiago Array Facility. Your weapons are temporarily disabled. Your shields are offline. Your engines are locked. In approximately 30 seconds, I will release the stasis fields holding these asteroids. They will impact your vessel at 0.3% of light speed. At that velocity, your armor will provide no protection. Your ship will be destroyed and everyone aboard will die instantly. Captain Vex straightened in her command chair, refusing to show fear even now. Then do it, human. We will not beg. I'm not asking you to beg, Lisa replied, and there was something in her voice that made Vex pause. I'm asking you to think. To consider what happens next. Because this isn't just about your ship. This is about every ship and every fleet you send against us. The display on the Crystalline Dawn's bridge changed, showing all 300 warships surrounded by asteroids. Each ship facing certain death. Thousands of lives hanging by a thread that Earth could cut at any moment. We could kill you all right now, Lisa continued. We could end this war before it starts. But we won't. Because we're not monsters. Captain Vex, we're just people who want to be left alone. Back in the tribunal chamber, Marcus watched the displays showing panicked communications between fleet commanders. Some were ordering their crews to abandon ship. Others were demanding reinforcements. A few, like Captain Vex, simply waited with dignity for death to come. This is your choice, Chancellor Vorn, Marcus said quietly. In 30 seconds, I either give the order to stand down or I give the order to fire. 300 ships destroyed. Tens of thousands killed. The largest single military loss in Council history. Or you can agree to negotiate in good faith. Vorn's plasma form dimmed to almost nothing, a sign of deep contemplation. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. You would truly do this? Kill so many? To protect 8 billion humans from slavery and death? Marcus met the Chancellor's gaze without flinching. Without hesitation? Without regret. Without mercy. The silence stretched. 20 seconds. 15:10. Wait, Vorn said finally. Ambassador Webb, you have made your point. Stand down your weapons. We will negotiate. Marcus tapped his device. Across the distant battlefield, the asteroids simply vanished, teleported back to wherever they had come from. The Council ship sat alone in empty space. Intact but humbled dot in the tribunal chamber, delegates slowly returned to their seats. The mood had changed entirely. Where there had been anger and contempt, now there was fear and grudging respect. Humans were no longer seen as primitives to be conquered. They were dangerous. They were powerful. And they were willing to use that power, but before anyone could speak, new alarms sounded throughout the chamber. Delegate Sora flared brightly with panic. Energy signatures detected. Multiple contacts emerging from fold space. Massive readings. Something's approaching the station? The main display shifted to show space outside the Council headquarters. And then they appeared. Ships that made even the largest Council dreadnoughts look like toys. Organic designs that seemed grown rather than built. Energy patterns that suggested technology far beyond anything human or Council science had achieved. There were dozens of them. Each one larger than a small moon. A transmission broadcast simultaneously to every screen, every communicator, every electronic device in the chamber and beyond. The voice was unlike anything any species had heard. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Multiple harmonics layered over each other suggested not a single speaker but a collective consciousness. This dispute is noted. This threat is observed. This conflict is understood. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. This wasn't part of any plan. These weren't Council ships. These weren't human vessels. This was something else entirely. We are the architects, the voice continued. We seeded this galaxy with life 3 billion of your years past. We have watched civilizations rise and fall like waves upon a shore. We have seen species achieve greatness and species destroy themselves. And now we return to see what has become of our garden. One of the enormous vessels moved closer to the station. Its scale was almost incomprehensible. Mountains given the ability to fly among the stars. Humanity, the voice addressed Marcus directly, you who developed so rapidly. You who moved your world out of desperation and pride. You who threaten with precision and hesitate at the brink. We have watched your growth with interest. Then it addressed the council. Council species, you who forgot the struggles of youth. You who grew comfortable in your power. You who plan to enslave those weaker than yourselves. You have disappointed us. The holographic display changed again, no longer controlled by Marcus or the council systems. It showed something that made every being in the chamber freeze with primal fear. A region of space where thousands of stars had simply vanished. Not exploded. Not collapsed. Just gone, leaving empty darkness where once there had been light and life and worlds. The void swarm approaches, the architects announced. An entropic force that consumes all matter, all energy, all possibility. It will reach this sector in 200 of your years. Perhaps less. Our calculations suggest that neither humanity's innovation nor the Council's resources alone can stop it. The voice paused, and when it continued, there was something that might have been amusement or might have been threat. It was impossible to tell. Together, however, you may have a chance. That is what we will discover. Whether the species of this galaxy can overcome pride and fear and hatred long enough to face a threat that cares nothing for your politics or your wars. Marcus found his voice. You're saying we have to work together? The Council and humanity? We are saying, the architects replied, that you will work together or you will all die. The choice, as always, is yours. But choose quickly. The swarm does not wait for the slow or the proud. The transmission ended. The massive vessels remained, hanging in space like silent judges in the tribunal chamber. Nobody spoke. The magnitude of what they had just learned was too vast to process immediately. An existential threat that made their current conflict seem like children arguing over toys. 2 centuries to prepare for something that had already consumed thousands of worlds. Finally, Morven spoke, his aged voice heavy with sorrow. So we nearly destroyed each other over pride and fear, while something far worse waits in the darkness. Yes, Marcus said quietly. He looked at Vorn, at Admiral Kethis, at all the delegates who moments ago had been his enemies. Which means we have a decision to make. Do we keep fighting each other, or do we start fighting together? Admiral Kethis was the first to respond. Despite everything, despite the threats and the demonstrations and the near destruction of her fleet, she managed something that looked like respect. Your people prepared or war against us. How long would it take you to prepare for war against this swarm? Alone? Marcus considered. 50 years to build the weapons. 100 to deploy them. 150 to coordinate the defense. We wouldn't be ready in time? And the Council alone? Vorn answered this time. Similar time frame. Our industrial capacity is greater, but we lack humanity's innovative technology. We would need decades just to reverse engineer your displacement systems, but together? Marcus asked. Sharing technology, combining industrial capacity, pooling scientific knowledge? Nobody answered immediately. The idea was too radical, too unprecedented. Species that had been preparing for war against each other, suddenly forced to become allies against a threat neither could face alone. Then, from an unexpected source came support. The Klaxis swarm's representative, a cluster of insectoid drones that spoke with one voice, clicked their mandibles, and what Marcus had learned was their equivalent of a smile. The swarm knows adaptation, they said. The swarm knows cooperation. If species can overcome individual pride for collective survival, the swarm will assist. Our hive mind can coordinate efforts across thousands of worlds. Our processing can manage complexity no individual species can handle alone. One by one, other delegates began to speak. Not all supported cooperation. Some still called for humanity's destruction, for continuation of the old ways, for maintaining the power structures that had existed for millennia. But others, slowly, grudgingly, began to see the necessity. Vorn raised his staff, calling for order. When the chamber quieted, he looked at Marcus with an expression that might have been the beginning of respect. Ambassador Webb, you came here expecting judgment. Instead, we all face judgment from forces far greater than ourselves. Perhaps the architects are right. Perhaps we must choose between cooperation and extinction. He paused. I propose we begin negotiations. Not for Earth's surrender, but for mutual defense. For an alliance between humanity and the Council. Marcus felt relief wash over him, but he kept his expression neutral. This was just the beginning. Trust wouldn't come easily. Cooperation would be difficult. But it was a start. I accept. Chancellor Vorn, let's begin. 3 months had passed since the architects revealed the approaching Void Swarm. The tribunal chamber had transformed from a judgment hall into a war room. Holographic displays showed the distant darkness where thousands of stars had vanished. Delegates who once called for each other's destruction now worked side by side. Analyzing data and planning defenses, Marcus stood beside Chancellor Vorn, reviewing tactical projections. The formal hostility between them had evolved into something resembling professional partnership. Around them, human military advisors worked with council strategists, sharing information that would have been unthinkable months ago. The projections keep getting worse, Vorn said quietly, his plasma form flickering with concern. Our combined analysts agree the swarm is accelerating. Original estimate was 200 years. Latest calculations suggest 130, possibly less. Dr. Benjamin Hayes entered the chamber, accompanied by a team of council scientists. Among them was Crystalline Scholar, a Vrin physicist who had initially refused to work with humans but had become one of the Alliance's strongest advocates after reviewing Earth's technology. We have preliminary analysis of the architect's data, Hayes announced, activating a new display. The Void Swarm isn't just destroying matter. It's fundamentally breaking down the structure of space-time itself. Stars don't explode. They simply cease to exist. Planets don't fragment. They vanish from reality. Crystalline Scholar's form refracted light into somber blues and grays. Nothing we have can stop this. Council weapons are designed to destroy physical targets. Human teleportation can move objects through space. But the swarm doesn't exist in normal space. It exists between dimensions, reaching through to consume our reality. Admiral Kethis studied the data with the intensity that had made her one of the Council's greatest military minds. Then we need weapons that can reach between dimensions. Technology that can strike at enemies who don't exist in normal physics. Or we need to understand what the swarm actually wants, Marcus suggested. The architects called it an entropic force, but they also implied it serves a purpose. What if it's not mindless destruction? What if there's intelligence behind it? The scene shifted to Earth's new location, revealed now to the Council as being in a resource-rich sector previously unexplored. Massive shipyards floated in orbit, where human engineers worked alongside alien specialists building vessels that combined both technological philosophies. The ships were beautiful in a way that neither species could have achieved alone. Sleek human designs merged with the ornate aesthetics Council species preferred. Practical efficiency met artistic expression. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka walked through one of the construction bays, her human engineering team working beside a group of Soren metallurgists. The reptilian aliens had initially been hostile, their species among those who had supported the invasion plans. But 3 months of working together had changed perspectives on both sides. The hull plating is stronger than anything we could make separately, Yuki reported to her commanding officer via communicator. Soren metallurgy combined with our nano-composite reinforcement. Shield generators use our power systems but Council-focusing arrays. We're creating something genuinely new. On the Klaxus Swarm's hive world, Ambassador Marcus walked among millions of insectoid beings, negotiating protocols for the Joint Defense Network. Queen Nexus, the collective consciousness that controlled billions of drones, communicated through specialized intermediaries. The human ambassador understands adaptation, The Queen's voice echoed through thousands of drones simultaneously. Humans change rapidly. Humans improvise. Council species resist change. They have forgotten flexibility. They will need to remember if any are to survive. Marcus nodded. Can your hive mind coordinate a defense network across multiple star systems? Real-time tactical adjustments across light years? The swarm can, Nexus replied. But the swarm will need quantum communication nodes. Human technology. Council power generation. Claxis neural processing. Combined, possible. Separated, impossible. Back in the war room, Director Rachel Kim presented intelligence reports that had been gathered over the past 3 months. We've shared our infiltration technology with Council security forces. They weren't happy about how deeply we had penetrated their systems, but they've been cooperative in securing them against future threats. And what did you find when you went deeper? Vorn asked. Rachel hesitated. Honestly, we found that most Council species were just as afraid of each other as they were of us. The facade of unity was just that, a facade. Multiple species were planning moves against their neighbors. Trade wars on the verge of becoming shooting wars. The Council was more fragile than anyone wanted to admit. And now, Vorn asked quietly, now you have a common enemy, something that threatens everyone equally. It's forced cooperation that probably should have happened centuries ago. The scene shifted to a secret facility where the most sensitive research was taking place. Dr. Lisa Cross worked with a team that included humans, Vryn, Sorn, and several other species. They were attempting something unprecedented, combining human zero-point energy extraction with Council dimensional manipulation technology. If we can create a stable fold in space-time, Lisa explained to her mixed species team, we might be able to redirect the swarm, not destroy it, but push it away from inhabited sectors. Think of it like a river. We can't stop the water, but we might be able to dig a new channel. A Sorn scientist named Scale Singer objected. The power requirements would be astronomical. Even with your zero-point extraction, creating a dimensional fold large, enough to redirect something on this scale would require more energy than our sun produces in a year, which is why we're not using one sun. Lisa replied with a slight smile. We're using 50. Council species control dozens of uninhabited systems. We build zero-point extractors in each one, link them through quantum entanglement for instant power transfer. And suddenly we have enough energy to reshape space itself. The implications settled over the research team. It was ambitious, possibly impossible. But it was also the first real hope any of them had felt since learning about the swarm. Months continued to pass. The alliance grew stronger. Cultural exchanges began as species learned about each other beyond military cooperation. Human music found audiences on worlds dozens of light years away. Council art forms captivated Earth's population. Trade agreements replaced invasion plans. Xenologists from every species worked to understand their new partners, but not everyone supported the alliance. On several worlds, resistance movements formed. Species who believed in Council superiority refused to work with humans. Some humans formed groups demanding Earth withdraw from galactic affairs entirely. And a few delegates continued to argue in the tribunal that the swarm was a distant threat, not worth compromising their power over. It was during one such debate that everything changed. Again, alarms blared throughout the war room. Sora flared brightly with panic. Energy readings off the scale. Something's happening at the edge of explored space. Multiple dimensional breaches. It's not the swarm, it's something. We don't fight it, we redirect it. Create a channel of fold space that pushes the entire force away from inhabited regions. Like diverting a river, Crystalline Scholar added, appearing beside Hayes's image. The swarm flows through space. We simply ensure it flows around us rather than through us. The project took years. The alliance expanded as more species joined, convinced by the demonstration at New Hope that cooperation was the only path to survival. Dimensional fold generators were constructed across hundreds of systems. Each one was protected by joint military forces. Each one was powered by zero-point extraction technology that humanity shared freely. Cultural exchange deepened. Human children attended schools on Vryn worlds, learning to appreciate crystalline art forms. Klax's drones explored human philosophy and found it fascinating. Sorn warriors trained beside human soldiers, each learning the other's fighting techniques. The barriers that had divided species for millennia began to dissolve. Not everyone accepted the changes. Resistance movements on some worlds turned violent. A radical faction attempted to sabotage a dimensional fold generator, believing the technology was too dangerous to use. They were stopped by a joint security team that included members of their own species working alongside humans to protect the Alliance. 20 years after the Architect's arrival, the dimensional fold network was complete. Thousands of generators positioned across vast regions of space, all linked through quantum entanglement, all ready to activate at a moment's notice, and then the sensors detected it. The main swarm force still years away, but visible now to the Alliance's long-range detection systems. It was vast beyond comprehension. Not a single scout, but millions of them, moving together like a living wave of entropy. Where they passed, entire clusters of stars winked out. Marcus, now older with gray in his hair, stood in the war room beside Vorn, who had become a genuine friend over 2 decades of cooperation. Around them, the next generation of leaders prepared for the battle that would determine whether their species survived. "Are we ready?" Marcus asked quietly. "No," Vorn replied honestly, "but we're as ready as we can be. The network will hold. The calculations are solid. We'll channel the swarm around inhabited space, let it pass through empty sectors where it can harm no one. And if we're wrong, if the network fails, then we adapted, we tried, and we faced the end together rather than divided. That counts for something." The swarm arrived 3 years later. The dimensional fold network activated, creating channels in space-time that guided the entropic force around inhabited sectors. It wasn't easy. Several generators failed under the strain. Others had to be recalibrated in real time as the swarm adapted to the channels. But the Alliance held. Human innovation provided solutions to unexpected problems. Council resources supported the infrastructure. Klax's coordination kept everything synchronized. And species that had been preparing for war against each other instead fought together to save everyone. The swarm passed through the galaxy over the course of 8 months. When it finally moved beyond the sector, emerging into intergalactic space where it would threaten no one for millions of years, the entire Alliance celebrated. Not just because they had survived, but because they had proved something important. Cooperation was stronger than conflict. Diversity of thought and approach solved problems that no single perspective could address, and the galaxy was better united than divided. The architects who had watched silently throughout the crisis sent one final message before departing. "You have passed the test, not perfectly. Many died, many suffered, but you learned. You adapted, you grew beyond your limitations. This galaxy is yours now. Guard it well. And remember, there are always greater challenges ahead. Face them together." 50 years after that first tribunal meeting, the galaxy was transformed. The council still existed, but as a true representative body rather than a tool of the powerful. Humanity held a seat at the table, respected for their innovation and their willingness to share knowledge freely. New species were welcomed rather than exploited. Former enemies became partners. In the old tribunal chamber, now a museum, schoolchildren from a dozen species toured together. Their guide, a being whose genetic heritage included markers from multiple species through voluntary genetic exchange programs, showed them the preserved recording of Marcus's laughter on that day when everything changed. That laugh, the guide explained, wasn't mockery. It was the sound of someone who refused to be afraid, who saw the absurdity of fighting over pride when cooperation could achieve so much more. That laugh changed the galaxy. One young human child raised her hand. "But they were going to enslave us." "Why did we help them?" the guide smiled. "Because holding grudges is a luxury no one can afford when facing extinction. Because every species deserves a chance to be better than their worst impulses. And because, ultimately, we're all just people trying to survive in a vast and dangerous universe, we do that better together than apart. Outside the museum, the stars shone peacefully. Human ships and council vessels patrolled together, protecting trade routes and exploring unknown sectors. On distant worlds, mixed communities flourished. Art, science, culture, all enriched by the contributions of multiple species working in harmony, the dimensional fold network remained, a monument to what could be achieved through cooperation. But it was no longer just a defensive measure. It was being adapted for peaceful purposes. Instant transportation across vast distances. Resource sharing that eliminated scarcity on impoverished worlds. Communication systems that brought the galaxy closer together. And Earth, relocated to its resource-rich sector, had become a hub of innovation and cultural exchange. Humans still remembered their near destruction, still maintained their defensive capabilities, but they no longer prepared for war against their neighbors. They prepared for the challenges that would unite rather than divide. In a quiet office on Earth, an elderly Marcus Webb reviewed reports from across the Alliance. Successful diplomatic missions. Scientific breakthroughs achieved through collaborative research. Cultural festivals celebrating the diversity of galactic civilization. His work was far from finished, but looking at what had been accomplished, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. His assistant, a young Vryn named Light Through Prism, entered with the day's schedule. Ambassador, you have meetings with the Claxis delegation, then a speech at the new university, then dinner with Chancellor Vorn. Marcus smiled, still calling him Chancellor after he retired 5 years ago? Light Through Prism's crystalline form shifted to colors indicating amusement. Old habits. Though I suppose it's like still calling you Ambassador when you're technically retired too. Some titles stick, Marcus agreed. He looked out the window at Earth's sky, where ships from a dozen species came and went freely. You. No, Light, when I stood in that tribunal chamber 50 years ago, I was terrified. Convinced I was about to witness humanity's extinction. Never imagined this would be the result. What changed? The young Vryn asked. We did, Marcus replied simply. All of us, we learned that strength isn't just military power or technological advancement. Real strength is the courage to admit you need help, the wisdom to accept help when it's offered, and the grace to offer help even to former enemies. He turned back to his desk. Now let's review those meeting briefs. If I know the Claxis delegation, they'll have 17 new proposals for improving interspecies cooperation protocols. And knowing Chancellor Vorn, he'll spend dinner complaining about the current council leadership while secretly being proud of how well they're doing. Light Through Prism laughed, a sound like wind chimes that still amazed Marcus even after decades of working with Vryn colleagues. As they reviewed the day's work, the galaxy continued its peaceful dance. Different species, different perspectives, different strengths, all working together toward a future none of them could have built alone. Humanity had laughed in the face of judgment, struck when cornered, and then chosen cooperation over domination when given the chance. And in doing so, they hadn't just saved themselves. They had helped save everyone. The tribunal chamber has transformed. What was a judgment hall is now a war room. Holographic displays show the approaching void swarma, force so vast it makes the previous conflicts seem like children's squabbles. The architect's vessels remain at the edge of council space, watching but not interfering. 3 weeks have passed since the architect's arrival. The political landscape has shifted dramatically. Marcus and Vorn stand side by side, reviewing tactical data. The formal animosity between them has evolved into wary professional respect. Around them, delegates work with human military advisors, sharing technology and strategic insights that would have been unthinkable a month ago. The swarm consumes everything, explains Dr. Cross, now working directly with council scientists. Stars, planets, even the fabric of space itself seems to degrade in its wake. The architect's data suggests it's some kind of entropic force anti-creation, if you will. Of Vryn Admiral Not Kethis, who was stripped of her command for the attack on Earth, studies the projections. Our models show that even combined, our forces have only a 37% chance of survival if we engage the swarm directly. Then we don't engage directly, says Commander Stone Patricia's father, now serving as liaison between human and council military forces. His daughter Patricia stands beside him. Having been formally integrated into the Joint Command structure, Marcus brings up new holographic schematics. Earth's fold space technology allows us to move objects with mass. The Council's weapons can generate firepower we can't match with our current industrial base. But the Klaxis swarm's hive mind coordination systems could manage a distributed defense network beyond anything either of us can achieve alone. The scene cuts to multiple locations simultaneously. On Earth's new location, now revealed to be in a previously unexplored sector rich with resources, massive shipyards are under construction. Council engineers work alongside human workers, building vessels that combine both technological philosophies. In Council space, human scientists share medical advances that have already saved thousands of alien lives from previously incurable diseases. The gesture hasn't been forgotten. On the Klaxis swarm's hive world, Ambassador Webb walks among millions of insectoid beings, negotiating not as a human to aliens but as one sapient species to another. Queen Nexus, the swarm's collective consciousness, has proven to be one of humanity's most valuable allies. Your species understands adaptation. Nexus communicates through specialized drones. You change, evolve, improvise. The Council species have forgotten this skill. They will need to remember. Back in the war room, the real challenge becomes clear. Director Kim presents the strategic analysis. We have 200 years theoretically, but the swarm's advance is accelerating. Our revised estimates give us 150 years, maybe less. Generations, Morven observes sadly. We're planning a war that our grandchildren's grandchildren will fight. Unless we change the paradigm, says a new voice. Everyone turns. Dr. Hayes enters, followed by an unusual entourage, 3 architect representatives. Smaller than their massive ships, but still towering over everyone in the room. Their forms shift and flow, never quite settling into a single shape. The architects have agreed to share knowledge, Hayes announces, barely containing his excitement. Not weapons, not power sources, but something potentially more valuable. They're going to teach us to think like they do, to plan and build on timescales of millennia rather than decades. One of the architects speaks, its voice resonating directly in everyone's minds. You fight well, both humanity and council, but you fight the wrong battle. The void swarm cannot be defeated with force. It must be starved, redirected, perhaps even negotiated with negotiated. Admiral Cathis recently reinstated after proving her tactical value in initial planning looks incredulous. It's a force of entropy. How do you negotiate with that? Everything that exists has a purpose, the architect responds. Even destruction. The swarm serves a function in the cosmic ecology. We must discover what it is. And for that, we need minds capable of unprecedented leaps of understanding. The architect's attention focuses on Marcus and several of the key delegates. Humanity's rapid development. The Council's accumulated knowledge spanning millennia. The Klaxis swarm's collective processing. The Vrin's crystalline memory storage. The Sorn's predictive capabilities. Individually, each of you is impressive. Together, properly coordinated, you might achieve something we have not seen in 3 billion years. And what's that? Marcus asks. Evolution of consciousness itself. A new form of collaborative thinking that transcends individual species' limitations. The scene shifts forward in time. 6 months have passed. The first joint Human Council vessels patrol shared space. They're magnificent, sleek designs that incorporate the best of both civilizations. But more importantly, their crews are mixed. Humans work alongside Vrin, Sorn, Klaxis, and dozens of other species. On one such vessel, the ESS Unity, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka from Earth serves as tactical officer alongside a Vrin navigator and a Klaxis communications specialist. What would have been unthinkable a year ago is now routine. In a quiet moment, Yuki shares a meal with her Vrin colleague, Crystalline, singer of Truth or Crystal, as she's come to be called aboard ship. They watch the stars together. Do you think we'll really be ready when the swarm arrives? Yuki asks. Crystal's form refracts light thoughtfully. I think if we're not, it won't be because we didn't try. And that matters. Our ancestors, both of ours, believed they were the pinnacle of creation. We know now that we're all just students in a much larger universe. Back on Earth. In a quiet moment away from the grand politics and strategic planning, Marcus Webb sits with his teenage daughter. Emma, she asks him the question that defines this new era. Dad, do you think we did the right thing? Starting all this? Marcus considers carefully. I think we did what we had to do. But Emma, here's what I've learned: being right isn't the same as being good. We were right to defend ourselves, right to demand respect. But the architects showing up? That was the universe's way of saying we were asking the wrong questions. What's the right question? Not, how do we survive against them, but how do we all survive together? Not, how strong can we become, but how much can we achieve by cooperation? Epilogue. The final scenes show multiple timelines, 50 years later. The first generation of children born into the Human Council Alliance attend integrated academies. They learn each other's languages, share each other's cultures, and dream of futures their grandparents never imagined. 100 years later, the joint fleet encounters the Void Swarm's leading edge. The battle is fierce but coordinated. Human fold-space technology moves entire battle groups instantly. Council weapons lay down devastating firepower. Klax's coordination ensures perfect tactical synchronization. And in a stunning revelation, they discover the architects were right. The swarm isn't mindless destruction, but a galactic cleaning mechanism, targeting dying stars and failed civilizations. With this knowledge, they don't fight it, but redirect it, showing it healthy stars and thriving worlds to avoid. 150 years later, the Void Swarm passes through the sector, its path carefully guided around inhabited systems. Humanity and the Council species have become so integrated that the distinction between them has begun to blur. New hybrid philosophies combine human innovation with Council wisdom. Art, music, literature, all of it enriched by cross-cultural pollination. The final shot returns to the now ancient tribunal chamber. It's been converted into a museum, preserving the moment when everything changed. A tour guide, a young being whose genetic heritage includes markers from 3 different species, explains to a group of children, this is where it all began, where humanity and the Council learned that fear and pride nearly destroyed both sides, where they learned that the galaxy's greatest strength isn't any one species' power, but all species' collaboration. One child, clearly human, asks, were humans really going to fight the whole galaxy? The guide smiles. Yes, and that's exactly why the galaxy needed them. Sometimes you need someone willing to stand alone to teach everyone the value of standing together. In the background of the museum, a single display remains from that fateful day, the moment when Marcus Webb laughed at the Council's judgment. Next to it, a plaque reads, humanity laughed not from arrogance, but from the absurdity of fear dividing those who should be friends. Let this moment remind all species, pride and fear are luxuries we cannot afford. In the vastness of space, we are all fragile. We are all precious. We are all ultimately one. The tour group moves on, but the camera lingers on that display. Through the museum's windows, the stars shine, not threatening, not unknown, but full of possibility.